what we're starting to see is really some of these, measures from various governments, particularly, here in Australia, we're seeing, for example, new measures on increased scrutiny, for example, when it comes to foreign investment. Is there a concern that with the closure of borders, physical as well as relating to trade that we'd already started building before the coronavirus outbreak, that we are seeing this turning from a public health crisis to a crisis of multilateral trade, a crisis of globalization?
There's no question that the COVID-19 outbreak continues to disrupt manufacturing and global supply chains with real consequences for businesses, for consumers, and the global economy. And certainly while this started out as a supply side issue with upstream disruption, with many industries, automotive, electronics, apparel being impacted by the disruption in China and the shutdown of tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, we are seeing that this is quickly turning into a demand side shock. We are seeing consumers who are stockpiling and panic buying, which is creating some spikiness certainly in demand, as well as a shift in different purchases. As it relates to the shutdown of borders, certainly there's been a lot that's been spoken about in the press, and we hear much about transfer of individuals, of passenger traffic. The supply of goods and the ability to continue to move goods from a global supply point of view and from a global trade point of view becomes a fundamental background and backbone, and that infrastructure still very much exists. There may be pockets of disruption, but companies are certainly putting the right measures in place, and most of the companies that I'm speaking with certainly trying to mitigate this, but anticipate the real question marks that it has from both demand and supply as it's supporting that.
I want to kind of focus in on healthcare, because I know that's your area of specialty. Has it surprised you the problems that have almost been universal in hospitals and healthcare professionals being able to access protective gear?
Yeah, there's no question that the foremost priority, and from a health point of view, but also from a supply chain point of view, is to ensure the availability of medical supplies, medical devices, medical products, protection equipment, masks, screens, et cetera, which are critically necessary for providing care for the people that are currently infected and that we're likely going to be being infected over the coming weeks and months to come. It's interesting, based on certainly the predictions that we're seeing for the number of infections, here in the U.S. and certainly global. There needs to be a wholesale supply chain ramp up, to make sure that we have tests in place and the equipment exists in order to be able to do it. And it's been very fashionable, certainly for medical professionals, to talk about flattening the curve, kind of moving production down. From a supply chain professional point of view as well, it's equally critical, as we need to think about smoothing out production, making sure that there's the right level of support and supply to make sure that the spike of demand that will exist in hospitals for key ventilators, the ability to be able to provide the protective equipment as well as, critically the tests, exists in order to be able to manage and support that.